thank you guys for all joining us. I didn't get a chance to go around and say hello to everybody here, so if I don't know you, please make sure you connect with me at some point. I'm the Cincinnati 2030 District Director, and Tom Schultz is our data analyst and program manager. And one of the things that I'm hoping everybody takes away from today is a little bit about the collaboration that happens in this group. So my goal today in this beginning part is just to talk through kind of the beginning part. If you're just starting your journey, or if you've been on it for a little bit and you want a refresher on what the 2030 district does, we'll get into some more interesting stories in a few minutes after I give kind of a brief overview of the district. So, and if you are seeking the HSW credits, please make sure you sign in the back. If you don't sign in, you won't get credit for it. And so that's up on the back kind of there. So for those that are not familiar with the district, check out our website. First of all, there's a wealth of information on the website. But our goals are to reduce energy, water, and transportation 50% by 2030. And we also pioneered this very first occupant health pillar. And the reason I'll talk about that in a little bit is because the first three are really part of what are all districts. No problem. There's 23 districts across North America, and we all work together in these districts for those three common goals: the 50% reduction in energy, water, and transportation. Now for energy, that's actually from a 2003 commercial building survey. So it's not the year that the building starts reporting. It's actually back to, it's whatever your building would have been like in 2003. And we can go into some of those more details in the next session. So the district based all of these goals on the Architecture 2030 Challenge, and not surprising, Seattle was the first district to join. Big surprise, Cleveland was the second. So I think that's pretty cool. We came along, we were the 21st district, and then the pandemic hit and things kind of slowed down for a little while as people were sorting out what was happening and what's going on. All this, I wanted to also mention that the 2030 district here in Cincinnati is housed by our local Green Umbrella, our Sustainability Alliance here locally. So we are an initiative of Green Umbrella. And if you think of Green Umbrella as kind of the sustainability umbrella, everything's sustainable. We have food, we have Tri-State Trails, we have the Food Policy Council, and CPS Outdoors. It deals with soil and everything. So our portion, though, is really the built environment portion. You can think about it in that kind of simplistic terms. But the 2030 district model was created as a national model. So the Architecture 2030 Challenge really said, okay, we have to meet these challenges that we're going to face and to stay on track for the Paris Climate Agreement, we need to hit these goals for these different areas. And so energy, water, and transportation. And the reason those were targeted is because the built environment makes up the largest portion of our sustainability challenges, as it were. So the urban built environment, the largest buildings, are the ones that actually utilize the most energy. And when some people ask about water, because of course we have a surplus of water here in Cincinnati, and water, for all intents and purposes for us, is we want to reduce it also because there's an energy component to it. Now, other regions are worried about it as a scarce resource, but in our case, we are really focused on water as a carbon emitter because it takes so much energy to pump, clean, and heat water. So the people that are part of a district, a 2030 district, or any district in North the building members, who are the ones that commit to the goals, the community partners that are kind of like, I think of them as like our cheerleaders. They're the ones that are in the arena, they're helping get to where we're going. The professional partners, they're the ones that have the services or products that are helping to reach the goals of the district. And then sponsors. So almost all districts rely on sponsors because, through grants, sometimes grants come and go, but those sponsors that become part of our community, they're the ones that really keep us going on a regular basis. So we always appreciate the sponsorship. So member support. If you're a building member, you're committing your property. You can have multiple buildings, you can have one building. And it can be a large commercial building or a smaller building. But we work with the building owner to report their energy and water data through a free platform. And then we have one that we put it through that makes it look a little nicer and gives you more robust information. And that's a recent acquisition for us. We were able to afford to buy that this year. We were really excited because that helps our building members reach, understand what's happening in their building much better. The building members get their own individual reports. They're also included in our aggregated numbers. So when we talk about the 2030 district and the 50% reductions, that's really talking about the whole district. Every building won't get there. We have some buildings that are 1800s, and we have some buildings that are really new and net zero already. We're really, and then we have some that are like the local IDW it's not a brand new building, but a newer building that is now operating at net zero. So we have kind of a plethora of different scales of buildings that are all doing the same thing. They're all working towards these goals, but not everyone will individually get there. And that's why we look at it as an aggregated number. So when we look at our numbers, and I'll show you a slide in a minute, you'll see that. So the other thing that we do a free building walkthrough for anybody that needs it. There are certain building owners, you'll hear from some of them in a little bit, that received a free building walkthrough, and it helped them figure out what aspects to work on next in their building. And then that combined with the building report really gives them a great snapshot and then the tools to be able to do something with it. And that's the goal, is not just we can report and measure, but we also are trying to give you the tools to get to where you're going. We had a re-grant program that was $85,000 that we gave out as matching grants. That was 2 years ago. And that was a great project because those building owners and managers that received that money were able to implement a project that was shovel ready at a one-to-one match. So they got that money from us to help them get to the reduction. Then we're able to measure that and see the amazing things that are implemented and like the impact that it has. So whether there were small grants that were given, there were large grants that were given, but it all ended up helping our building members actually achieve their goals faster. So we also have this network that we're part of. We have national education programs and things like that. The partners are ones that support all the building members. And one of the things that's wonderful about the district and kind of the collaborative team that has grown within our district is that we have these impact teams. They're all focused on a goal, a pillar, and we have building owners, and we have professional partners and community partners. So it's a really good mix of people that come together to help solve some of these problems. And those teams have been working very diligently to get new programming, resources, things available to people so that they can implement things. But those partners, they help us by, they engage in those teams, they have the opportunity to meet the building owners. We love highlighting anybody within the district, we love highlighting their stories. So if you have a story you want to share, especially if it's a collaborative story, we love sharing those. Those go out in our newsletter, we have case studies on our website, we have a lot of resources that people can use. So the idea is to just keep telling about what's happening, and it grows sort of on its own. Just a really quick look, we've got 46 building members with over 28 million square feet and 322 buildings. These are our stats that are ever changing. The professional partners and our community partners. So you can see we've got a wide variety of people engaged with the district. So this is one of our district-wide reports. This is just a snapshot. So in our first year of reporting, which was actually 2019, we started to report that year in 2020, so during the pandemic, but we were looking at the 2019 data. That one was, if I remember correctly, it was about a 25% reduction. And then during the pandemic, we saw actually a 30% reduction. We'll get into some of the nuances of what we're measuring in our next session, but this is looking at an aggregated number of all the buildings that we're able to report and that were at that time in a district boundary. Now we are starting to move away from a district boundary because we were getting buildings that are outside of the boundary, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of our thinking later on in today's session. But essentially you see that the good news is that we were below where we needed to be for that year. So if you look at, I don't know if you can see my cursor, probably not here. The yellow bar compared to the 2020 target. We were below where we needed to be for this 2020 report. I mentioned the building walkthrough program. This is a really amazing program that our professional partners have teamed together to do a joint walkthrough on a building so that it's a combined report. Two different professional partners come together and collaborate and build one report that goes to the building member for their next steps. For transportation, we have an HR commuting toolkit and a website set up now that shows all of the different strategies that you can use to help reduce commuting emissions. And again, we meet people where they are. Not everybody is going to be able to move to a bus. One of the goals is to look at things in a multifaceted way. We may be able to move some people to buses, some people to bikes, some people to EV, and all of these combine to kind of get all of our emissions reduced. And so I mentioned the healthy building. So Cincinnati 2030 District early on decided that it was really at the heart of what we're doing is we're trying to create good spaces for humans. And you can almost not look at sustainability without thinking of the impact that it has on the occupants of the building. So we spend 90% of our time indoors, and like that has a huge impact on the human body. So we worked with the International Well Building Institute, and we'll go into that a little bit later. And you can talk to anybody at the health table to get more information about this. But we worked with them, and we created a checklist that we want our building members to approach and try to reach 7 of the 14 strategies. So all of that works with our community health needs assessment. So it was actually looking at the issues here in Cincinnati locally, regionally, and and trying to account for those and solve them through the built environment. So you can learn more about that. I am going to introduce Carl Sterner. Carl Sterner is with Soul Design and Consulting. So I would say that Carl is kind of the glue that brought 2030 District together. It's pretty exciting that from day one, he connected about 6 of us and said, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we could start a 2030 District here? Actually, I think you were more insistent than that. Like, we need to start a 2030 District here. Anyway, we started to pull the people together. Jeremy Faust was right there at the front table and with Fifth Third Bank, and we had a team of people that began to go from 6 people to 8 people to 12 people to 20 people, and it was in a short time. And that was really, so I would say that Carl Sterner was the connective tissue of our district. So I'll pass it over to you, and we're going to move to our panel discussion.
Thank you, Elizabeth. That's very kind. It was a team effort. I mean, the 2030 District, I think, from the very beginning was a team effort, and I think that mentality has really carried through to today. I think that's one of the real positive things about it. Feels like we're all pulling together and willing to learn from one another. And actually, in that spirit, I think this is a good segue to our panel. I'm very excited about this panel. Number of building numbers that represents kind of a wide diversity of building number types in the district. So we'll get to actually hear from these folks about what their journey has been like so far. Let me start by just asking each of you to quickly introduce yourself and maybe explain a little bit about what your involvement in the district has been to date. Start with you.
I start, okay. Hello, I'm Nadja Turek. I'm the Sustainability Director for Altafiber, which you might know as well as Cincinnati Bell. Our organization joined the district in 2019, so we've been in it for a number of years. Technically, our headquarters building is a part of the district, although we have a number of other properties in the Cincinnati region. One of the most important facets of our sustainability journey is getting our arms around our carbon footprint and reducing our carbon footprint in our facilities and of our telecommunications equipment, among the other pillars that are here that we're working towards as well. So we are motivated to be a part of the district because, you know, as a company, our culture is to value community, think of our customers as our neighbors, lean into things like this where we can do it in good company and together. So it's our pleasure to be a part of the district.
So my name is Tiffany Budd. I am the Sustainability Operations Coordinator for NKU. Let me know if you can't hear me. My voice doesn't project very well. I've been at NKU for 14 years, but I've only been in this role for 3. It's a new role to the university. There's a number of faculty that incorporate sustainability into their curricula, but I am the sole staff sustainability professional for the campus. I also do utility data management as part of my job, so kind of acting a little bit in an energy management role, so we do not have that staff position on campus either. So the university signed onto the University President's Climate Commitment in 2007, which is a commitment to reduce carbon emissions by 2050 to net zero. And we've been working towards that goal. We have a sustainability strategy that we created in 2017 that has 6 different goals that are helping us advance towards this goal. But joining the 2030 District was a way to reinforce our commitment towards that goal and to show progress towards our sustainability goals in general. I've been trying to be very active on with the district since we joined in August of 2019. So participating on the different teams, trying to get our university advancing in the direction that we want to go.
And I'm Brandy Kroner with Sleepy Bee Café. We're the small fish in this pond. So we have 3 restaurants that are open right now, 4th underway. We joined 2030 back in June of 2020. We were on a sustainability path, but it was really in the realm of restaurants. It was like composting, local sourcing, things that we knew, and we wanted to kind of level up and align with an organization that we knew would help us push our goal. Our goal is to become regenerative, but we are a restaurant group, so we were going to have to figure out a lot of different kind of nuanced parts of that.
I'm Emma Cotter. I'm the Director of Operations and Sustainability at CPHC with Franny. And as she said, we joined in 2020. The pandemic gave us kind of a unique opportunity to look at ways that we could kind of double down on some of our mission and initiatives that didn't involve serving people food, since that was limited. And we're also pursuing B Corp certification. So joining 2030 kind of helped give us some reinforcement in especially like the building management side, which, as Franny said, wasn't necessarily where our focus or knowledge was before.
All right, thank you. I should actually also mention, just as a kind of housekeeping note, we are going to have a Q&A session after I kind of ask a few questions. So keep your questions in mind, and we'll have the audience to be able to ask our panel some questions at the end as well. I think one question I have is, generally, did you feel like there was good alignment with sustainability goals that your organization had already and the goals of the 2030 district? Or was the district kind of bringing a new frame onto some of those sustainability goals? And kind of second part to that question is, are there certain pillars then that are kind of more important to your organization, given the organization's sustainability goals? Maybe let's start going from the other direction this time.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, doing building management, looking at our energy and water output was kind of a new angle for us. Franny and I both started in the kitchen and knew about food, both management, waste, and sourcing. So 2030 district brought a new frame to us, and then I think we've mostly, really enjoyed engaging with the data management and data analysis piece for both our energy and water emissions. I think the transportation goal is one we haven't engaged with. It's more complicated for us in the restaurant sphere. We've got not just employees driving to our space, but also guests and food being delivered. So we're still working on deciding how to manage and measure that. And then, occupant health is also a little different in a restaurant setting than in an office setting. So those pillars we're not as engaged with as the water and energy at this point.
I feel like our goals were kind of like esoteric before, and we were like, we need somebody to kind of point us in the right direction, and then 2030 was like right there.
That's great.
So I mentioned that the university committed to be carbon neutral by 2050. So the goals of the district directly align with the goals, the overarching goal of the university. We've done some large-scale stuff like large energy efficiency projects. There's so much more that we could still do, but we've done some of that already, addressing energy efficiency. I would say in regard to the water, we haven't done a whole lot as a university, but we try to incorporate that. Like when we renovate buildings, we put in low flow, toilets and stuff like that. We strive for LEED certification with all of our new buildings. Transportation, we are a heavily commuter school. We only have approximately 2,000 beds on campus. So we have been kind of focused on how can we reduce the number of cars that come to campus. So we offer programs like, we partner with Tank, which is the bus service in Northern Kentucky, to offer all faculty, staff, and students free rides using their all card as part of our effort to reduce transportation to campus. And just doing kind of various things like that in regard to the transportation world, offering commuter surveys and stuff, which is helping inform the data for the district as well. And then the occupant health, we have a wellness director on campus, so she's been doing a lot of stuff already, like within her realm, and some of that directly aligns with the occupant health pillar initiatives. So I see that overlapping very closely, so some of the things that you're working on.
At altafiber, one of our major focuses is also climate action and reducing our carbon footprint. Our parent company asked us to develop a strategic plan to work towards net zero by 2040, which is clearly extremely ambitious. And so that is a big focus for us too. So clearly the 2030 district's goals around energy reduction is very well aligned. The pandemic really helped us with our commuting footprint. The survey showed that we were like 67% down from where we were before. Problem somewhat solved by this particular metric. Bear in mind that we operate about 760 vehicles in this geography. We also own Hawaiian Telcom, so we have another 600 plus vehicles in Hawaii. So we have a tremendous footprint that isn't necessarily aligned with that part of the pillar, and we are also taking that part of our footprint very seriously. So we have a lot of work to do, despite how good that particular number looks on paper for us. Water is probably the lowest on our totem pole as well. We're not, we do the same thing when we renovate low flow fixtures and whatnot, but we don't have a tremendous water footprint associated with our business practices. And we are working on a new facility standard as we return back to work from COVID. So COVID's changed probably all of our work lives, and of course ours as well. Our office environment's going to look very different before to after. And so in our new facility standard, we are going to incorporate some of these tenets that are in the wellness guide. Things that, again, I think we have a strong history, strong HR practices, strong employee wellness practices, but it gives us an opportunity to sort of codify some of these things in the new facility standard we're going to work on. So does it align? It aligns pretty darn well. The one pillar that's really important to our sustainability program that doesn't show up in the 2030 district is our materiality footprint. So we own and operate a tremendous amount of copper, IT equipment, and with that comes e-waste. You might have seen us doing e-waste collections at our stores this past weekend. So that piece of our materiality footprint is an important part of our sustainability program, not currently captured under 2030, but there is a ton of Venn diagram overlap for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Very good.
Yeah.
What would you all say has been your biggest success and biggest challenge to date as part of the 2030 district? We can start at the other end to give you a little time, I guess.
Really good. So we, Elizabeth mentioned that we were one of the people who had the free walkthroughs, and so we had all three of the Bs had a kind of sustainability analysis or an energy usage analysis, and that was super informative for us. One, at our downtown location, we also got one of the matching grants and updated our hood system. So as you can imagine, like kitchens are, one of the biggest energy uses is the hood, because it basically like draws up all of the air from the restaurant and pushes it out, so that includes the conditioned air. So this new system, we partnered with Malink and they installed it. It helps regulate that, and so that's really, we've been watching that to see how much it affects the overall energy usage, and the intention is to kind of take each improvement and replicate it at the new stores. Additionally, the HVAC in general at all the restaurants is something that we lose sleep about at night, because it is one of those things, you just add a whole bunch of people in the room, you've got all the ovens in the back, it's just a lot to navigate. So at our newest location, we did a totally different layout than we have done in the previous locations. Used windows instead of open spaces to kind of try something new with our HVAC. Again, our intention is to continue to improve. So this new location is also an all-electric line with a wood-fired oven. So it's our first time moving away from gas on a big scheme. We've done that before in the restaurants. As we say goodbye to pieces of equipment, we update them with electric. But do you want to talk about our losses, our challenges?
Yeah, I feel like one of our biggest challenges has been now that we've started measuring. So we started measuring in 2020, and that year looked great. And now it's seeing all of where our kind of determining where our actual baseline is, or where we're riding when we are fully operational. We're kind of just now coming back into fully operational restaurants on the other side of the pandemic. So determining our baseline and kind of setting goals and prioritizing goals that are require a little bit more legwork from the team. So obviously we have other things that we're doing on a day-to-day basis. So one of the challenges is just kind of remembering what you want to work on to meet those 2030 goals, but there's a ton of support.
Yeah, one other thing just to add on to that, we have so many humans in the space that work and visit, and so a huge part of their water and energy usage is obviously based on how the individual's interacting with the space, and so that's another piece that we're kind of still trying to figure out, what can we automate, and what can't we automate.
would say one of the biggest successes was getting the university to sign on in the first place, because it's really hard to get things done at a university. So that was a huge win. It showed that the university was reinforcing their commitment towards their sustainability goals and to being carbon neutral. So that was, I felt like that was a big win for us. And then just kind of ongoing successes, working with the different pillar teams and just collaborating with everybody and learning so much has really helped. Has helped me grow in my role as, not an energy management background, but now being able to, speak to these things and share with my colleagues and just kind of help us more quickly advance some of our goals. So I really enjoyed participating with the teams, and it's a great learning experience. Definitely encourage everybody to do that when you join, or if you join, and if you're a member now. And then I would say a challenge, probably the initial challenge was, which buildings do we want to be a part of the district? Because we have so many buildings, you don't want to put all of them on there. We have rental houses, we have maintenance buildings. So we picked some of the core buildings to use for our footprint, and that seems to be working pretty well. And then the other challenge that I'm experiencing is getting others involved with the district. A lot of organizations, we're losing people, we're stretched thin, we're all doing way more than we're supposed to be doing or should be doing or whatever. And so trying to get people to take on more responsibility has been a little bit challenging. And then COVID's hitting, and then there's all different priorities. So that's something that I'm hoping we'll get a little bit better in the future, is to overcome that hurdle and get more engagement with other members of the university, with the district, and maybe open up some opportunities for our students as well.
I would say, I'll start with challenges. How about that?
Sure.
One of the challenges that we have with our participation in the 2030 district at the moment is that the one building we have enrolled in the district, we are a tenant of. So we're not the landlord, and I'm sure that resonates, so I wanted to bring it up. So we have to apply, tactful and kind, positive pressure upon our landlord to participate, hopefully, through reporting of energy and utility usage. Otherwise, we're really just estimating, right? We own and operate 5 floors in this building. It's typical office. Maybe we peg it off of CBEX, which is what we're basically doing for our own inventory's sake, but that doesn't accurately reflect real progress over time. So we've been trying to apply, again, the positive type of pressure on our landlord to participate with us in good faith. It is a LEED building. We chose to move into a LEED certified building. That should be very helpful. If you're familiar with LEED, they have to, it's a LEED EB-O&M building. So they have to track their utility usage over time. So it's just a matter of getting everyone to play nicely together in that way. So that's been a challenge. One of the things we might do is enroll one of our owned facilities in the 2030 district, because we have a large building, if you're familiar with our West 7th building, which is the historic Cincinnati Bell building. It's got a historic register facade on it. It's next to the Cyrus 1 building, if you know where it is on West 7th. That building we own and operate. We have all the utility bills. It has a tremendous, a high energy use intensity building, because it's stacked chock full of every era and vintage of telecom equipment going back to 140 years of business. So it's really a tremendous and a neat facility, but a highly energy intensive facility. But it too needs to be a part of the fold, right? It's a part of our portfolio, and we need to work on it. And I think having the daylight that shines upon a facility by being part of a consortium like this one is positive, is good for us. So, leased facilities, owned facilities, we have different ability to control and or influence those types of facilities. And we have, frankly, we have both. So we have 65 facilities that we own in Southwest Ohio, Northern Kentucky, and then we have probably another 30, 35 leased facilities that we are also responsible for. So it's a tremendous, lift just to get our carbon footprint, taken care of, to know what it is, and then we want to take action about it. As far as successes go, again, I'll highlight employee commuting. It has absolutely plummeted. Our business has continued to operate fairly seamlessly, I think, through a lot of change, as of, I'm sure many of yours have done the same. And we just, Our employees' quality of life has improved with less commuting, less traffic congestion, less parking issues, less of all of that. So that's an environmental win and a health and wellness win. You know, we didn't bring that all about by ourselves in a vacuum. Obviously, the pandemic did, but our response to it has had that positive, impact. So,
do you anticipate those benefits to continue in the future, or do you think to some extent you'll see a rebound in some of the commuting numbers?
Yeah, I think some of it will have to rebound. We will have some folks coming back in. But again, we're in that same inflection point so many are in, where we're writing a new facility standard, we're adapting new HR policies to allow for hybrid and flexible work. And so yeah, some of that certainly will rebound, but hopefully with the best of both worlds.
Yeah. Okay. This is, how are we doing on time?
Questions? It's time for questions.
Time for questions. All right. Well, the rest of my questions will have to wait. Let's open it up to the floor. Yeah. Anyone? Yeah.
Well, I guess it's a question for all the panelists. Best way to phrase it is, what is your sort of stretch commitments or stretch plans? And we have 8 years left to this decade. I would argue we should get an extra 2 years just to be nice. But within that time range, is there anything at, nearing the end of the decade, projects or strategies that you want to commit to and want to implement in order to help bring yourself over the finish line?
I feel like ours is kind of easy, at least. There are some things that we've talked about as far as like switching the rest of our equipment to electric, updating the rest of our hoods.
Yeah, our equipment footprint and as far as energy use is, the biggest things. I think, and there are some great technologies coming online already, and I think can anticipate continuing to do so in the next few years. So overhauling our equipment footprint in this next 8 years is probably the biggest impact we can make towards that goal.
There's also some, like we've been working with Ecolab, they do our dish machines, and there's been some innovation there as far as the water usage, and I think that's going to actually be the biggest thing that we can do to change, so we switch those over.
So for university, obviously it's going to be very challenging, and there are plans to build new buildings, and how do you offset that new energy consumption? And so we have completed a large-scale energy efficiency project, a few of them, and we get reports on that, and our board is seeing the savings, and the administration is seeing the savings, and so they want to do more of those and do them soon. So they'll be addressing energy efficiency in that way. Like she mentioned, we had some big wins during COVID with transportation, and we're continuing to see progress in that area because we are also offering a hybrid and sometimes fully remote work opportunity. We have a lot of students that are online students, so obviously there's no transportation footprint there. One thing that we saw with COVID was water use reduction, right? Most people probably saw that, but we actually continue to see savings in that area throughout people coming back to campus because there weren't as many people on campus flushing toilets, running sinks, going to water fountains, all of that. So we continue to see some savings in that area. So there may be opportunity to just explore like more of the behavioral side of things and not just technology. Trying to think outside the box a little bit. So it's going to be a challenge for us to get there, but we're trying.
2030 is a impending and really important milestone. Our corporate ownership, we're a part of a family of companies now that requires a couple things. We have to have science-based targets, if that lingo is familiar to folks. Which means we have to get to a 50% reduction by 2030, and that has to be authentic reduction, not offsets. So that's a tremendous lift, and then work towards the next decade is the 2040 goals, which is net zero, but that will likely then have to include some forms of offsets. And so we have a lot of work to do, and I will say one of my challenges is the regulatory and frankly legislative environment here in Ohio, and that might not, maybe it's a popular thing to say to this group, not to every group, but our board of directors and our leadership own and operate here in Southwest Ohio, Northern Kentucky, and we own and operate in Hawaii. I mentioned our ownership of Hawaiian Telcom. And if you were gonna make an investment that was going to pay back and meet carbon and sustainability goals, lots of win-wins, you're gonna do it in Hawaii every time over this geography. It's a real fight for me to make projects in this geography look as attractive as projects in that other geography now. Granted, it's sunshiny, it's an island and all that, but frankly, it goes to the price point of power here, it goes to subsidies that exist, it goes to prohibitions against types of renewables here, lack of renewable portfolio standard in our state, energy efficiency rebates have been gutted here. You know, there's just a lot of things working against us in a broader environment that make Ohio somewhat, frankly, uncompetitive for green investments compared to other places. And when you kind of look at a bigger picture scale, that starts to hurt us. So I'm thinking and seeing that only because, again, my responsibilities force me to look at what investments I can make here and what investments I can make elsewhere. So we should all think about that, you know, as we do what we can to be advocates and lobbyists on behalf of things that help us to make investments attractive here in this state, the kind of green investments that we want and need to make. So, little plug. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Any other questions? Yeah.
You mentioned, some of you mentioned kind of the health and wellness benefits, and I'm curious how you measure that. You know, particularly, you know, humans are visiting your space, and particularly around maybe a social return on investment, and what kind of goes into that equation. We're trying to figure that out, so I'm just curious on the ground if you have experience with that.
I'll honestly tell you, I don't personally have much experience with that. You know, I do have a counterpart, being as big as we are. You know, I'm the E in our ESG, if you're familiar with environmental, social, and governance. And I have a counterpart named Michelle, who is over our social programs, who probably has a much better answer to that than I do. Anybody else? I gave you a little time. Anybody else?
So we have a director of wellness, and you know that is a struggle for her. Like, how do you actually gauge like if people are getting healthier from these initiatives? And I think she works with HR and our health provider to get data on, you know, how many, and it's obviously anonymous data, aggregated data on like how many people are going to the doctor every year. Has that improved since she started, you know, some of these initiatives? So they're trying to kind of gauge it in that way a little bit. But I would say the occupant health pillar for the 2030 district, you know, kind of aligns with building operations as well. So when you're improving your buildings and making them more efficient, you're also generally sometimes incorporating some of the occupant health pillar by default, like with better lighting and better air circulation. So some of those things you can monitor via the building itself. But as far as like, actual health results, I think that's a challenge for most organizations, but good luck.
We've been relying on qualitative data for that. Yeah. We've been doing a lot more surveys since surviving the pandemic, or like getting through the pandemic, and we've done a lot throughout that time to just kind of check in what people feel like they are or are not getting at work. You know, we invested a lot in our social goals during the pandemic as well. We've not just environmental, so making sure we were paying a wage across the board. Everyone is offered health insurance, and we've made sure that there's a really affordable tier in it as well. So like that would be one option for measuring, you know, how participative people are in the health goals. I think that moving to electric equipment is going to make the workplace safer because it will be like give off less radiant heat than our gas equipment. So we've got some things like that we'll be measuring too.
Yeah, we've brought OSHA in as well to do like a gas analysis at one point in time because we had some concerns that folks were breathing in too many gases. And so that was just it's a free service, anybody can use it. You can just call them and they'll come out and they'll do the analysis for you. And then, I mean, we have the benefit of like, we have tons of air circulation, as I mentioned before, it's a problem. And like, we have lots of natural light, which is another benefit. We did add a lot of plants. I feel like that was like probably our biggest like tactile investment towards but I feel like it's made a huge difference. Like our staff, like if you ask them what the biggest like benefit of the last year has been as far as the actual space goes, that's what they'd say. So.
And getting to feed them good food every day is
yes.
also very helpful.
It's healthy food too. So.
Is there a little bit of time for me to do a reattack on that one?
Yeah.
Okay, So I mentioned we have an ESG, right? Governance, social, environmental, and we are responsible to our company executive leadership, right? And folks from the social side of things walk in the room and they say things with qualitative benefits. You know, we need to make this investment. It'll have these qualitative outcomes on our employees. It'll help retention, you know, very fuzzy returns, but they argue good things and then they get funding for their programs. I walk in the room and I say, I want to reduce our carbon footprint. I want to invest in renewables. Here in Ohio, you know, right now the payback on that, if we do certain types of math, is, you know, 12 to 16 years. And they look at my request financially, right? Because there is a financial payback to renewable energy, and they'll go, oh, well, as compared to other places I can put my money, that's not a good. And I'm like, no. This is the ESG space, right? So there's these qualitative benefits. We're trying to meet these social objectives, and my investments need to be judged on that same tier, right? So, and mine pays itself off over time, you know, and it has financial benefit, right? But I feel like because in the sustainability space, especially when you do things that have energy savings, the finance brain turns on in everybody's head, and they start looking at it purely financially, and then they want to say, well, financially speaking, I should put my money into some other investment, right? Because now they're just looking at it through a financial lens. So we can fight for the financial lens, and we have to have a qualitative lens. We have to do both. And I feel like when I can present shoulder to shoulder with our other ESG groups, for example, a risk management study. I want money to do a risk management study to reduce risk in our organization. Nobody asks, well, what's the ROI on your risk management study? What's the financial ROI on your wellness program? Maybe they do, I don't know. But they'll ask me, what's the ROI on your PV system, right? So we kind of need to advocate for environmental programs in that same qualitative space where we can go shoulder to shoulder for funding, not just solely based on financing.
That's why I asked the question.
You're my girl.
All right. Do we have time for one more? Yeah, okay.
Hi, I'm David with the Public Library and thrilled to collaborate with the Green Umbrella, Tri-State Trails, and I'm learning so much. And I really appreciate the panel focusing on the macro of altafiber and NKU, and in comparison with your smaller scale footprint of your small business that you do, which I love, by the way. Then actually the stretch goal question answers some of my questions, but for our CPB friends, what is your vision, and I'm sorry if you touched on this and having trouble hearing back here, but on packaging. During the pandemic, I tried to let go of my obsession about carry-out packaging because the whole world did more of it. And in tandem, just this past weekend, I visited the Cincinnati Reuse and Recycle Hub for the first time. They take coffee cup lids. So I wonder what your thoughts are on packaging, how we can better educate, and we work with the county and the city, and they're working with recycling programs as well. But how can we collectively talk about packaging more, and what are your efforts on packaging specifically?
It's a hot button topic right there. Because of the Cincinnati, the way that, you know, what could be recycled and what couldn't be recycled and how it's changed over time, and then the fact that compostable. So we've always done recyclable or compostable. We choose between what we think people will do with them most often, and how dirty they get after they've been used, because obviously soil recyclable won't be recycled even if it's, you know, people don't usually wash those after they use them. So I think we've gone back and forth between them. As far as the question goes about what to do in the future, I think that it's a great question. I'd love to noodle it more. I don't know, do you have anything?
Yeah, we're open to whatever data comes our way. I mean, there's pros and cons to every side. There's really frustrating things about the supply chain and manufacturing practices, even for our compostable goods. There are expectations in the restaurant space, and there are also new things that we can recycle. Like we can, you know, have a space for coffee lid drop-offs, and the coffee cups are now recyclable in Hamilton County. So, like, you know, it's just going to be paying attention to kind of where we're at and trying to make the best decisions each time.
We did start also, I feel like the cutlery was the one that we addressed the most head on, because, you know, if you get a carry out, oftentimes you don't package of cutlery, it's got a napkin, it's got, you know, the three things. So we stopped doing that. We started packaging our own, so it was just whatever the item was that the person was going to eat, and the, you know, perceived use of the utensil. So that was a big one that we took on. And then we also just, you know, started, like we recently just purchased water bottles for the team because, you know, we've encouraged people to bring in their own coffee cups and water bottles. In restaurants, the staff shouldn't have glass, you know, in the kitchen you're allowed to have glass, you can't have open drinks, so it's really important that people have contained things, so it's really easy to go to the stuff that you can throw away. So we've started purchasing like just staff materials so that we have them in-house, that we reuse and that kind of stuff. So we reduced that, but I think as far as the like actual packaging industry goes, there's a lot to be done. And I do feel like we are like, you know, married to it a little bit against our will.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. I might ask one last question as a wrap up, which is just if there are some prospective 2030 district members out there, what would you tell them about joining the district?
Do it.
Right.
Shameless plug time.
Yeah, they're great. They have a lot of resources and they'll help you a lot. So
Yeah.
there's really no downside.
Yeah, no downside.
It's free to join. You get to interact with so many different organizations, from the big ones to the small ones, and get to, you know, network with people that you probably would never network with normally. And just the resources that they offer, I mean, it's so helpful, and it'll help you advance your goals much quicker, and working collectively towards the same mission, you know, will get you to your goals faster.
Gosh, amen to everything you just said. Yeah, I'm a big fan of building your network. You know, you can't do things and you won't figure it out in isolation. That's not the nature of how we think and work things through. So you need kindred spirits who are trying to do a similar hard, heavy lift. So it's good to be in community with other like-minded folks. For us, it's also a significant, we want to show leadership in the community. We want to have a strong face in the community. We want our brand to be, in concert with things like this. So it's important on lots of levels.
All right.